Podcast by Friday, episode 43.
And on today's episode, we are going to talk about the best scheduling app for your minimal viable podcast. It's so important to schedule guests if that is a format that you're taking on your show, an interview format, and you just want to make certain that that schedule takes place without going back and forth. And so you want to know what the best app is. And we have tried a few apps ourselves. And in this show, we're going to talk about what we've found to be the best apps and give you our recommendation. So stay tuned for that. And let's now dive into today's show. Hey, Bill, it's great once again, man, to be connected this way as we record another episode for our awesome guests at Podcast by Friday. How are you doing, sir?
I'm doing well, Kingsley. Today has started off very well as far as my journey towards podcasting goes. Everything is functioning perfectly. There were a lot of things that pop up at the last minute sometimes that prevent you from getting things done when you want to get them done. And we've overcome those things because we're better prepared.
And isn't that the thing? As someone has said, I think success, or one of those words, is where preparation and something meets. Do you know that phrase about where those two, the opportunity and preparation meets? That's success.
No, I hadn't heard that one. I'll have to.
Yeah.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah. So when an opportunity arises, we've been prepared for it, and you become successful. So I consider what you just said a successful combination. And we are going to have that today in this episode.
Mm-hmm. It's very challenging sometimes for entrepreneurs and podcasters like us to get things done. There are so many distractions, so many other uses, and people will fill up your time for you and find things for you to do that may not have been even on your radar when you started out the day. You have to be very protective of your time.
I've heard someone say that if you don't schedule and plan your day, someone is waiting to plan it for you. Or something is ready to plan it for you, right? And that's what happened many times. So I'm so into scheduling things because I want to make sure I plan it for myself and not have someone else plan my day for me. That happens so often, which really is a great segue into our topic of discussion on our podcast today.
Yeah, when you think about it, anytime that you stop to do something for someone that was, that they wanted to do, for instance, answering their email or talking to them about whatever it is that they're trying to work on, you have given over the control of your time and your productivity to their agenda and not to yours. And that is why it's very important that you know where your time is going and you have a plan in place before you start using your time. And one way that I manage that, and I'm sure that Kingsley also manages that, is through the use of scheduling apps. And so today we're going to be talking in this episode about the best scheduling apps for your minimal viable podcast.
And, I love this because I look back and I was not the most organized person, Bill. And one of the things I realized, I did not live my life or plan my days according to schedule. I mean, like a calendar. And I look back and I wonder, where did my time go? What happened here? Why was I not being able to follow up on certain things? Why did I forget things? And I went on and on. And like you said, I discovered how to start using a calendar. But what was a game changer for me was when I was able to find an app online where I could actually make my life so much easier by having to avoid this going back and forth and trying to figure out what to do next. Or if someone wants to do a business with me, to wonder, okay, do you have time? Do I have and it was like pulling my hair out, which I don't have much of right now. As if you ever seen my picture, I don't have much on my head, so I no longer have hair. I've been pulling it out all these years, but now life is so much easier having a scheduling app.
Yeah, when I think about probably the most often the most frequent occurrence for me when it comes to scheduling something is when I'm setting up for an interview with someone for either Podcast by Friday or for CNC Router Tips podcast, or I'm going to appear on somebody's podcast. That becomes a scheduling, because you go through all the aggravation and everything of making the contact with the person. You got the contact, suddenly you've got Ashton Kutcher, responding to you. And now you decide, hey, come on my podcast. And he says, yes. And you're, great. What time works for you? And he says, oh, I don't know. What time works for you? And then you go through this dance back and forth, trying to get it scheduled. And the next thing you know, he's not on your podcast because you guys don't have a way of managing this.
It's called the scheduling dance. Let's dance. Come on, let's dance. It's called and you have this dance going on, and the problem is that you're not dancing in sync. You're not coordinated because you don't have that. So I love the fact, Bill, that we are talking about that. So here's a question that someone who may, we just can't assume everybody understand or know what is a scheduling app. So what is a scheduling app, Bill?
Well, a scheduling app is an online calendar. And in some cases, they're a calendar that you carry with you on your mobile device or have on your PC. But it's essentially your time and your availability online in an app that you can, allow people to request some of that time, or you're sending them to this app instead of doing that old scheduling dance that we just discussed.
and I really, that's a great way of defining, I think, what that is. And what I like about this, Bill, is I use Google Calendar, and it's I have it on my phone, on my computer. I mean, it really helped to organize my life. And what I love about this schedule, most of these, if not all, scheduling apps allow you to integrate that appointment you've set into your Google Calendar. And so it have it all in one place. When I schedule interviews on my podcast, I don't have to worry about it showing up on my Google Calendar. I mean, it's right there. So I'm notified, and I don't have to, miss a date or have the, idea of booking two things on the same time, because it pops up immediately into my Google Calendar. So I avoid duplicate appointments, and I avoid missing an appointment because it's shown up right there. So I love the fact that it's online and it's integrated easily into my Google Calendar.
Mm-hmm. Now, you use Google Calendar, but I use the iOS Calendar app, because I travel a lot with an iPad and iPhone. So all of my scheduling is done on that calendar system. And so I wanted to find a calendar app that easily integrated with, Apple's calendar app. And, thankfully, that is what I was able to do. It's perfect that you don't have to learn a new calendar, a new way of looking at the calendar just to use these apps, because there are lots of apps out there that will help you manage and schedule your time more efficiently, and that's what we're discussing.
And what I like also, Bill, we've kind of touched on that briefly in our opening, talking about the scheduling apps, is that the question is that when do we normally use this? I know for me, as you described earlier, if I want to set up an interview appointment and have someone to be a guest on my show, or I'm going to be on someone else's show, and I send them a link that I have set up, that's an easy way for me to quickly have that appointment, set up with a guest. So when I use it, is primarily, and also because I do coaching as well, I use the same scheduling app to schedule appointments. I mean, interviews for my podcast. I use it to set up a client who want to figure out time to do coaching with me. I set that up as well. So I use the same one, and I just will tell my guests or the person that overlook the text that may be on that. When they open up my scheduling app, they'll see, for example, it's about podcasts and the time. So just don't worry about that. Just pick the time that's best suitable for you, and it will immediately notify me. So I use it for those kind of things, and that's when I'm so appreciative that I have a scheduling app available to really make my life so much easier.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Now, the interview is one area where these apps really shine. Setting up the schedule for your interview, where you can look, at your month in a glance to see, what days you have someone set up to come on your show and do an interview. And you can have it broken down by, multiple interviews during the course of the day. And it'll show you, I've got Kingsley at 9 o'clock. I've got Joel Bogus at 11, on and on. And it will show you visually inside of these apps, who you're scheduling with. But they can be used for so much more than scheduling. I mean, now, Kingsley is a coach, and he does a coaching course. He could use his schedule to book appointments for coaching. Is that something that you're currently doing, Kingsley?
Yeah, I really, as a matter of fact, this last week, one of my clients that I had, she wanted to schedule a good time with me to do a coaching bill. And, I'm thinking, okay, it just is sweet. I was like, okay, here's my link. Go in and schedule it. She, have a 9-to-5 job, and she's thinking, how can I do this, where it doesn't fall out of, it doesn't, interfere with her life, her daily life, and her work and so on. And what I did, I just block out times on my calendar that I can use for my coaching. So when she opened up a link, immediately she sees the available times that I have. And she now have to work within that. And of course, she was able to find a time that works perfectly for her and for me. So that worked wonderfully.
I am so glad you brought that up, Kingsley, because, that's the whole basis and premise behind this. Your schedule, is when you are available, when you're comfortable doing things. And if you know ahead of time that you've got some time on Tuesday at 3, you can go into your scheduling app, put that down, and that time is blacked out. It appears as available time. Yes. And, if you go and do this for your entire week or your entire month at a time, those times are available. You really don't care what you're doing at a time where you already didn't have plans. So when somebody comes to grab your coaching or, schedule an interview, it takes so much of the load off of you, the host, by letting them make a decision that works with their life, their lifestyle, their timing, because they'll look at what you've got available and they'll choose what's best for them. And because it was already a time that you knew you were available, it works out for both of you. So it's a win-win. Yeah.
I'm glad you highlight that part, because that's really a sweet part about this whole, scheduling app, because you can block time that works for you. And the whole point is that it makes your life easier, and people have to work around your time, not you around their time. Mm-hmm. So it really is your best friend. I would see it as, and
yeah, I look at this. It has really changed my life since I started doing courses where I was teaching people how to operate the CNC router table. In my other podcast, the CNC Router Tips podcast, that's the main focus. I mean, we've got a large group of people who want to learn this skill. And so I will set out time in my scheduling app because I know it's going to take at least an hour each time we do this. So I'll set out times, with an hour. And when people get into these scheduling apps, they're able to click a button to choose the kind of schedule time that they want. For instance, if they look on my calendar and there's a half-hour window open, and they try and schedule a course, which will take an hour, it won't allow them to do that. They've got to pick a different time. And so that makes it so much easier for me and so much easier for them to know that up front.
Yeah, and I think it's, I guess as you're listening and you're hearing us return time and time again to the ease of use, but also convenience. Make it convenient for you. I was on vacation a couple of weeks ago as of this recording, and I knew I was going to be away for a whole week. So I went into my scheduling app and blocked off that week because I want no one who may find a link that I have out there somewhere about how to schedule an appointment with me to try to schedule while I was on vacation. So I find for personal use as well, it's a great way to manage when, who, where, what kind of thing in your life. So it's not just because you have an interview or an appointment or a coaching or a course scheduling, but you can do it for personal use. If you want to have nobody interfere with your calendar for a whole month, you can do that. So I love the fact that it provides an opportunity.
Yeah. Now we've been talking about these scheduling apps and when we use them and what they are. Let's help our listeners by talking about the calendar apps that we use, the scheduling apps that we've used in the past. And I think that there are such a variety of them, but we're going to discuss 3 today that we've used, and there are others, but these are the 3 that we have tried and the ones that we're using.
The one that I use, I think, is Calendly. It's Calendly. So Calendly.com, you can go and find out more about this. I've tried other, but Calendly works well for me. So when I went in and set my account up, I was able to find Kingsley Grant as my, the dash that comes after Calendly.com/Kingsley Grant. So I immediately secure that because I want to have Kingsley Grant across the board in everywhere a person can find me. So I like Calendly because it's really easy to use. It's very user friendly and it's clean. It's not crowded for me. I've seen somewhere you have to see the whole month and just like, oh no. So it gives you 3 at a time, like Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. It'll show that on the screen. And if you need to see more than that, you click and go to the next screen because it's. I think how it's set up is where it doesn't want to overwhelm you with all these choices. A confused mind, it happens so quickly when you have too many choices at one time. So Calendly gives a very easy way of presenting a clean look as to what days is available and then what times are available. And only the times I have set up to be available that it shows up. So I love Calendly. It's memorable, so I can easily say to someone, and by the way, if you're hearing me say this, don't go and schedule. Well, no, you can go ahead. You can go and schedule to my link here. But Calendly.com/Kingsley Grant, boom, you're right there. So I love it. It's easy to use. It's user friendly, and it's not a huge learning curve to set up for appointments.
Mm-hmm. I tried all 3 of the scheduling apps that we are going to mention here today, and the second one that we're going to mention is Schedule Once, which is another app that integrates, and you can find that at scheduleonce.com. It is an integrated calendar app with lots of features in it as well. I mean, it integrates with PayPal. It integrates with Zapier and a few other things. It was more of a professional enterprise level calendar app than I really needed at the time. that I was using it. And I don't know if that was your feel, or if you ever checked out Schedule once, Kingsley. Was that something that you looked at?
Yeah, I did. I actually was using it for a while. I tried it out, and again, it was pretty easy to set up and all that. But for some reason, I think what you just said, it was really it was a little bit more than I really needed. And the people who have introduced me to that would say the very same thing, that if you just need something very basic and quick and easy to use, this might not be the one, because it does provide you with a professional feel. And it's good. I mean, there's a time I believe that I may use it in the future. Because I've tested it out and I like it, but for some reason I keep on coming back to Calendly. So I found that for what I need right now, Calendly provided everything I needed. So I just stopped using Schedule once, and Schedule One is also a paid, for you from the very basic way up. I think it's a paid app.
Yeah,
that you had, right?
$7.50 a month. Yeah.
Okay.
To start. It is one of those cases where they built a really beautiful app that does so much and has so many features. It integrates with Google Calendar. It integrates with Office 365, Exchange Calendar, iCloud Calendar, Outlook Calendar, unlimited booking, automatic booking, booking with approval, multi-user systems, everything. It will do messaging. It will do payment integration and all sorts of things that I really didn't need just yet.
Right.
Many of our podcasting friends who are big time podcasters, who are, doing 7-figure businesses through their podcast, use Schedule once. And someday, maybe it's my aspiration to grow up into Schedule once.
When I grow up, I want to use a Schedule once.
Yes. But right now, for my minimal viable podcast, where I'm just trying to do exactly what I need to do to get started, I found that another app worked better for my personal needs. And that app is acuity-scheduling. And it's one that I have been using since I heard about it. I think perhaps Michael Warner was the one that I heard about it first through. But it's very simple program. It also has a lot of back-end features that I don't use, but they weren't necessarily presented to me when I was first signing up to use it. So if I wanted that advanced stuff, I had to click a tab and add it to my scheduling. It would do it. It wasn't in my face. So acuity scheduling is spelled ACUITY and then scheduling.com. Okay, very cool program. In my opinion, it shows you your month at a glance, and it shows you your week at a glance. If you want to set it up that way, or today's date, or a month, whatever you need, you just click a tab, and it will show you that calendar. So if I wanted a calendar for today, it would break it down by the hour, by the half hour, or whatever I set as my default, and it will show the areas where I'm available for appointments as gray. And the ones where I'm not available as white. Or you can set it up in any color you want.
And we're not color, we're not discriminating here. So I want to mention that. So would you say then, well, actually you have used, I've not used Acuity. I've heard of it. I have looked into it, but I haven't. I'm glad you mentioned that. But we want to mention that these are 3 of the many that's out there. But we want to stay true to what we've said before, and you've heard us talk about. We talk about things we have used ourselves and know about, because we want you to know that we just want to throw things at you because it's people have mentioned those things. No, we want to talk about what we've used, but also remember it's a minimal viable podcast idea, and we wanted to bring things to your attention that you can get into quickly and get started and have not one more thing to say, I can't get started because of, no, we want you to get in the game quickly. And we mention these things because this is the whole point of it. It's a minimal, quick entry into podcasting. So, Bill, we talk about these apps and about how the power of them, the ease of use, make our life convenient and all the different things. How do you normally get your people who want to get connected with you and schedule something with you? How do they find this link? I mean, how do you normally manage that? Before Bill gives us his answer to the question I've just asked, we want to take a brief sponsor break to say that this show is being sponsored by CNC Router Tips and KingsleyGrant.com. So it's CNCRouterTips.com and KingsleyGrant.com. CNC Router Tips focuses on the makers community who want to know all about CNC and the machinery as well as the software that runs that. And you can find, again, more about that at cncroutertips.com. And KingsleyGrant.com helps us focuses on personal and professional development for that professional person or that executive who wants to increase productivity in their own personal and professional life, who also want to find ways to lead more successfully those that are following them. So again, it's KingsleyGrant.com and CNCRouterTips.com. Now, let's get back to the show today and begin where I had asked Bill the question about how does those who want to schedule an appointment with him, where do they find the link to the scheduler app that he uses? And now here is his answer.
Well, I'm glad you asked that. So in every single one of these apps that we've mentioned, acuity-scheduling, Schedule Once, or Calendly, they each allow you to generate a link, either an email link or a messaging link that you can send out to someone. They also all offer you the opportunity to create a web page to send someone to where they can do scheduling. So, for instance, on your website, you could have a schedule page, or book or a booking page, if it's that way, where someone can go and, you can direct them to that page on your website, and a link will pop up and they press a button and off you go. They enter their information and boom, they're into your schedule app and they're able to choose a time and a place and set an appointment with you.
And, I don't have one on my webpage, and I find that I did a long time back, and I don't know, for some reason, I guess when I pulled that down, I thought maybe I just didn't want everybody to go and start scheduling without somehow me. I know I would still be notified, but if, every Dick, Tom, and Harry, I don't know who those people are able to go in and schedule, it might be too overwhelming. So, but that's one place you could put it, But what I do most times, I have an idea because someone reached out to me. Then I will send the link that Calendar provides, and I mentioned earlier. I send the link via email or through social media and say, hey, go ahead and schedule an interview or an appointment with me. Here's the link. I did that just last week. Someone was saying, Kingsley, hey, you know what? I heard such and such on a person on your podcast, and I was thinking to myself, why didn't I reach out to Kingsley and offer myself to be a guest on his show? Because I'm a good fit. And I said, sure. I mean, and it's a person who really I admire in what they're doing online. I said, why not? I said, I don't know how it took you so long, but anyway, I said, here's a link. Go ahead and schedule an interview. Boom. It was done. So Monday come in, as of this recording, I'll be interviewing this person. It didn't take much of maybe about less than a minute. We're all scheduled and ready to go. So I like the idea of sending the direct link to them either through email or social media.
Yeah, nothing shows people how serious you are about your podcast and about your time and their time being valuable than the ability to send them directly to get their problem solved instantly. And by sending them a link to go and schedule it, boom, they're done. It's a few seconds of their time right now to set up something that can impact both your podcast and their life and their profile with others. So it's a really handy tool. And one of the things that I also like about these scheduling apps that they have built in, like in the case of the one that I use, acuity-scheduling, is it gives me the ability to track who my clients are and who have contacted me, because when they go to that app and they click on they want to schedule a booking or an appointment with me, it asks for some basic information like their name, their best contact
information.
Yeah, their information, their phone number, their email stuff. So all of these things can be exported later to my email list. I can set up a special list for it. So it lets me keep track of my clients. It's kind of like having a computer generated black book. Everybody used to carry around a little black book.
You're dating yourself there, Bill.
Yeah, but this is only for my clients.
I like that though. I like the fact that I really didn't think about that. It's a big plus right there, because you could keep track, follow up with people, and who knows, you may do business with them later on in the future. So I'm glad you mentioned that, Bill. You said something earlier I wanted to reference to before we kind of move on here. You incite in the fact that sending links to your potential guest and so on, and about the professionalism of that. One of the things that stood out to me was that lady that last week that I had as a coaching client. When I first started with her and she asked me about setting something up, one of her remarks was, Bill, she said, "Man, Kingsley, this is so professional. So quickly you were able to send me," and it stood out to her because I guess in her past, or whoever she dealt with, had to go back and forth, and figure out a time to have a schedule. And she said, "Wow, this speaks volumes to her." And she said, "This is one of the reasons why, again, I feel working with you is such a plus for me, because you're so organized." Little does she know, this is our secret here. Little does she know, but that's the what she got. How perception is a reality. That's the perception that was formed in her mind. And now she can say, "Oh man, he is so professional. Here's what happened." So as you're listening right here, if you want that kind of feel and create a perception in your audience mind, this is one way to do that. And I love what Bill just said about tracking your clients. Imagine in the future, do a follow-up. Hey, last year, whenever a day you had done this, man, I was want to say thank you again, da-da-da. Wow, you remembered? Not knowing that you're tracking and keeping these things. So I really like that part that you mentioned.
Mm-hmm. And there is so much power in these scheduling apps and so many different ways that you can use them. We're not going to touch on all of them, but one thing that I really do like, and I think is directly applicable to you if you do lots of different things like I do, in my scheduling app, Inside Acuity, they can choose the type of appointment that they want with me, and I can block out how much time I allow for those types of appointments. So, for instance, I'll do a podcast interview, and I know it's going to take at least 50 minutes to do a podcast interview, just between even if it's a 20-minute episode or whatever. There's the time, the back and forth where the guest and I have to talk and make sure that their sound is right and all of that. It's going to take 50 minutes or so to do a podcast interview. There's another for training in vCarve Pro, which is a program that I teach folks to use. And I know that the attention span and the level of intensity of that training is going to be about 30 minutes before the person, is ready to move on to another topic. So I set those up like that. And, if we're going to do a group training where several people are going to be there at once, I'll set an hour aside for those, so when they're in the scheduling app, setting up the appointment, they can choose those types. And when someone sees that you're that focused and, that organized, they're going to better respect your time and realize, just how important your time is to you. And they're going to do whatever they can to try and stay within that time frame, because it sets it up in the expectation in their mind. Oh, we've only got 50 minutes. So
yes.
I better focus.
That's a good point you're making, and I think it's really helpful. And again, I said before, it does send a message across the board that you're organized. Your time is very valuable, and you know what you're about. So I think perception that comes across is also very important. So we've really spent some time, Bill. I think as you've listened today, you are probably just ready to go and say, man, what can I now do, having heard about what scheduling apps are, when we use them, what the examples of the one we use. And you might be thinking as you're listening in, well, what do I need to do now? Well, we wanted to kind of lay down a challenge, or not a challenge per se, but for you to do something about this and not just hear us, but be a doer of what you've heard. So what we have decided to do is ask you to decide on one of these scheduling apps that fit your workflow. So as it works for you, and sign up for it today. Then let us know what you've decided, which one you've decided on, and even possible why you chose that one. I'm curious. I'm a person who's very curious. I would love to hear why you chose that one. Let us know about that. And so, Bill, how can they let us know what it is they've decided to do about having listened to this episode today?
Well, if they're a member of our private Facebook group, Podcast by Friday Facebook group, they can post inside of the group and let us know what they've done and what they've chosen. Otherwise, they could use our hashtag PBF43, and tell us on Twitter or in Facebook or wherever, Google Plus, wherever you are, use that hashtag. We'll see it. It'll pop up in our feed, and we'll be able to respond to you for that.
And Bill, you said if they are a part of our group. Well, if you're not today, we want you to come and join us in that group. So go to facebook.com/groups/podcast by Friday, and it won't anymore be if you are a member. No, you will be a member, and so you are able to continue the conversation there for all of us to take part. And maybe you might share some things in there that are helpful to other members. So join us today in that group and become a member.
Yeah, and it doesn't cost anything to join the group. It is a free membership, and we look forward to hearing from you. One last thing that I would like to bring up before we bring this episode to a close about these scheduling apps. You can try every one of these apps that we have mentioned: Acuity-scheduling, Schedule Once, and Calendly, for free before you buy them, which is a really cool thing. And in fact, some of these calendar apps have a always free version.
Calendly does.
Yes, and so does Acuity-scheduling.
Oh, okay.
So if you've got the basic stuff and you don't need some of the more advanced services, well, you can. There's no reason. There's no barrier to entry to you to try these apps. So, again, we're always trying to serve you with the best information we have in the best way we can. So there is no excuse. We want to hear what you're doing, how you're scheduling it. And you can make an appointment with us if you have the time.
I like that. I really, I'm glad you mentioned that, Bill. So free is good, and we are about minimal viable podcasts and a minimal viable scheduling app. So get the free version of it, get started, and let nothing become a barrier between you and your podcast. So we want you to get going on this. And if you are thinking about how to schedule, well, you have the answers. We've given you everything we know, basically, that can help you to get started. So let's get started today.
Fantastic. You've been listening to Podcast by Friday with Bill Griggs and Kingsley Grant. Today's topic was the best scheduling apps for your minimal viable podcast. I hope you enjoyed this episode. Thank you very much for tuning in. We do appreciate each and every one of you. I'm Bill Griggs.
I'm Kingsley Grant. See ya.
Okay.
Awesome, man. This is good.
Yeah.
Covered a lot on this episode.
Yeah. You know, on the call to action, I was just thinking that boy, wouldn't that have been something? That would have slammed our that would have slammed us, though. And the call to action, if we had said, okay, your call to action is to go out and choose one of these things and then go make a 5-minute appointment to tell us what you scheduled.
Oh, man. No, I'm glad you didn't mention that at all.
or a 1-minute thing, you know, or whatever.
Yeah. I mean, that sounds definitely...
Your email list, though.
That could be an overwhelming thing for us, you know. Yeah, that's really too much there. So I'm glad you didn't mention it. Thank you for holding back on that.
Yeah. All right. Another episode in the
can, man.
Yeah.
It's all a wrap.